Undercover boss saw Waitress serve chili dogs at 7 a.m., then discovered a secret tip scam. Victor Hayes had spent 23 years building Morningside Eats from a single roadside diner into a chain of 847 locations across North America. He knew every item on the menu, every supplier contract, every profit margin down to the decimal. But he'd never actually flipped a burger at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. Until today. The fake name tag on his chest read Vic. His expensive watch was replaced with a $15 plastic one. The gray in his hair had been darkened with temporary dye, and he wore the standard-issue polyester uniform that smelled faintly of industrial detergent. Nobody at the Morningside Eats location on Fairbank Avenue knew who he really was. That was the point. This branch had been flagged by corporate for 3 months straight. Sales were down 18%. Inventory reports didn't match revenue. Health inspections were barely passing. Regional management wanted to shut it down, but Victor had a rule: never close a location without seeing it with his own eyes first. So here he was, walking through the back door at 5:47 a.m., into a kitchen that hadn't been updated since 2011. "You the new guy?" A stocky man with a grease-stained apron glanced up from the fryer. His name tag said Ramon. "Yeah. Vic. First day." "Good luck." Ramon didn't smile. "Stay out of Mia's way during the morning rush. She's fast, but she doesn't like people messing up her rhythm." Victor nodded and tied on an apron. The kitchen was cramped, outdated, but surprisingly clean. The equipment hummed with the kind of reliability that only came from constant maintenance. Whoever ran this place cared, even if the numbers didn't show it. At exactly 6:15 a.m., the front door unlocked. And that's when things got strange. The first customer was a woman in a faded blue factory jacket, her hands calloused and red from cold. She didn't look at the menu board. She walked straight to the counter where a young waitress with dark hair pulled into a tight ponytail was already waiting. The waitress, Mia, Victor assumed, smiled warmly. "Morning, Mrs. Chen." "The usual?" Mrs. Chen nodded and placed a crumpled $5 bill on the counter. Mia didn't touch the cash register. Instead, she grabbed a small notepad from her apron pocket, scribbled something by hand, and clipped it to the kitchen order rail. Victor squinted at the slip as it spun past him. Chili dog. Light onion. Coffee black. He blinked. Chili dogs weren't on the breakfast menu. They never had been. Morningside Eats served pancakes, eggs, bacon, toast, standard American breakfast. Chili dogs didn't appear until the lunch menu at 11 a.m. But Ramon didn't hesitate. He pulled a hot dog from the warmer, dropped it on the grill, and ladled chili from a slow cooker that Victor hadn't even noticed tucked in the corner. 3 minutes later, Mia delivered the plate with a coffee and a napkin. Mrs. Chen ate quickly, nodded her thanks, and left. No receipt. No register transaction. Nothing. Victor's pulse quickened. By 7:15 a.m., it had happened 6 more times. A man in a delivery uniform. A teenager with oil-stained jeans. An older woman with a walking cane. All of them ordered the same way. All of them paid cash. All of them got chili dogs that shouldn't have existed on a breakfast shift. And none of it went through the point-of-sale system. Victor's mind raced. This wasn't incompetence. This was deliberate. Organized. A system running parallel to the official one. He approached Ramon cautiously. "Hey, are we supposed to be making chili dogs this early?" Ramon didn't look up. "Mia handles it. But it's not on the breakfast menu." "Nope." "So, why are we doing it?" Ramon finally met his eyes. His expression was unreadable. "Because people need to eat, Vic. That's why." Before Victor could respond, Mia appeared in the kitchen doorway. She moved with the efficiency of someone who'd worked this job for years. Quick, precise, never wasting emotion. She grabbed 2 plates, balanced a coffee pot in her other hand, and spun back toward the dining room without a word. Victor watched her through the kitchen window. She refilled coffee for a man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. She smiled at a young mother trying to keep a toddler quiet. She moved between tables like she knew every person by name. And maybe she did. At 7:43 a.m., Victor took his break. He stepped into the back alley to catch his breath and make sense of what he'd just seen. That's when he saw her again. Mia was standing near the dumpster, but she wasn't throwing anything away. She was handing out paper bags. Brown, grease-spotted, folded at the top. 4 people stood in a loose line, waiting quietly. She gave each one a bag, and each one pressed cash into a plastic cup she held in her other hand. Victor's stomach tightened. This is it. This is the scam. She was stealing food. Selling it off the books. Pocketing the money. He'd seen it before at other locations. Employees skimming product, running side businesses out of the restaurant. It was theft. Plain and simple. But then one of the men, a guy with a limp and a torn jacket, said something that stopped Victor cold. Thank you, Mia. I got a job interview at 9. This means I can actually think straight. Mia smiled. Good luck, Mr. Alvarez. You've got this. The man nodded, clutching the bag like it was worth more than gold, and walked away. Victor stood frozen in the shadows. These weren't customers being scammed. They were being helped. Mia turned suddenly, as if sensing she wasn't alone. Her eyes locked on Victor. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she walked over, her expression calm but guarded. You're new. Yeah. Vic. I know, she crossed her arms. You've been watching me all morning. Victor scrambled for words. I noticed the chili dogs. They're not on the breakfast menu. Mia's jaw tightened. No. They're not. So why? People need a hot start. She interrupted. Her voice was quiet but firm. The company doesn't offer that. So I do. Victor stared at her. You're using company food. I'm using food that would have been thrown out anyway. And I'm charging cost. No profit. Then what's the money for? She held up the cup. It had maybe $30 in crumpled bills. To cover what I can't. Sometimes people can't pay at all. So the ones who can, help the ones who can't. Victor felt something crack open in his chest. This wasn't theft. This was survival. Hers. Theirs. A whole community's. Does your manager know? Mia's expression hardened. Clark knows enough to look the other way. For now. She turned and walked back inside, leaving Victor alone in the alley with a truth he hadn't expected. He wasn't looking at a scam. He was looking at a system the company had failed to build. And now he had to decide what to do about it. Victor couldn't shake what he'd witnessed. He spent the rest of the morning shift moving through the motions, wiping down counters, refilling ketchup bottles, pretending to learn the layout, but his mind was elsewhere. Every time Mia walked past with another handwritten order slip, every time Ramon pulled another chili dog off the grill without question, Victor's understanding of his own company shifted. By 10 a.m., the mysterious breakfast rush had ended. The regular menu took over. Tourists ordered pancakes. Business people grabbed coffee to go. Everything ran through the POS system like it was supposed to. It was as if the earlier operation had never existed. Victor found Mia restocking napkin dispensers near the front window. He approached carefully, keeping his voice low. Can I ask you something? She didn't look up. Depends on the question. How long have you been doing this? 2 years. Maybe longer. She moved to the next table, her movements mechanical. Why does it matter? I'm just trying to understand. Mia finally stopped and met his eyes. Hers were dark brown, tired but sharp. You want to understand? Fine. Come back tomorrow at 6. Same time. Watch closer. I already watched. No, she shook her head. You saw transactions. You didn't see people. Before Victor could respond, she walked away, disappearing into the kitchen. The shift ended at 2 p.m. Victor changed out of his uniform in the cramped employee bathroom and sat in his rental car across the street, waiting. He told himself he was gathering evidence. Building a case. understanding the scope of the problem before making executive decisions. But the truth was simpler. He was curious. At 2:47 p.m., Mia emerged from the diner's back entrance carrying 2 large canvas bags. She walked 3 blocks north, turned down a side street Victor had never noticed, and stopped at a chain-link fence surrounding an empty lot. Victor followed at a distance, staying behind parked cars. Beyond the fence was a makeshift gathering space. Plastic tables, folding chairs, a faded banner that read Fairbank Community Job Center, Walk-ins welcome. 15 or 20 people sat in clusters, filling out paperwork, talking in low voices, drinking coffee from styrofoam cups. Mia unlocked the gate with a key from her pocket and carried her bags inside. Victor watched from across the street as she set up a small folding table and began unpacking. Containers of soup, sleeves of crackers, paper bowls and plastic spoons. She moved with the same efficiency she had at the diner, serving people who lined up quietly, gratefully. A man in a wheelchair rolled up to her table. "You're an angel, Mia," she smiled, handing him a bowl. "Just soup, Mr. Davis. Nothing fancy. Still counts." Victor's chest tightened. He recognized some of the faces from the morning rush. The woman in the factory jacket. The teenager with the oil-stained jeans. The man with the limp who'd mentioned a job interview. They weren't scamming anyone. They were surviving. A woman in a blazer, clearly the job center coordinator, approached Mia and hugged her. "You didn't have to bring extra today." "I know," Mia said. "But I had it. The plant closure hit everyone hard," the coordinator said quietly. "Half these folks haven't worked in 4 months. They're trying, but you can't interview on an empty stomach." Mia nodded. "That's why I come." Victor felt something cold settle in his gut. He pulled out his phone and did a quick search, Fairbank factory closure. The results loaded immediately. 6 months ago, Arroyo Manufacturing, the town's largest employer, had shut down without warning. 1,100 jobs lost overnight. The economic fallout had devastated the area. Unemployment spiked. Food banks were overwhelmed. Families fell apart. And Morningside Eats, Victor's company, had done nothing. Why would they? It wasn't their responsibility. They sold food. They weren't a charity. But Mia had made it her responsibility anyway. Victor sat in his car until the sun began to set, watching her serve the last of the soup, fold up the table, and lock the gate behind her. She walked home alone, her canvas bags empty, her steps slow with exhaustion. He wanted to confront her. To ask her why she was risking her job, her livelihood, for people who couldn't pay her back. To ask her if she understood that what she was doing could get her fired, maybe even charged with theft. But he already knew the answer. She understood perfectly. And she was doing it anyway. Victor drove back to his hotel and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his phone. He had the regional manager's number pulled up, ready to call. Ready to report everything. To shut it down before the audit found it first. His thumb hovered over the screen. Then he locked the phone and set it aside. He needed one more day. Just one more day to understand what he was really looking at. Because for the first time in 23 years, Victor Hayes wasn't sure if the company he built was doing the right thing. Victor woke at 4:30 a.m. to 17 missed calls. His heart hammered as he scrolled through the notifications. 12 were from his executive assistant Claire. 3 from the CFO. 2 from the head of regional operations. All marked urgent. He'd made a critical mistake. In his focus on going undercover, he'd forgotten about the scheduled quarterly audit review. It was happening today, and he was supposed to be leading it. He dialed Claire immediately. "Where are you?" Her voice was sharp with panic. "The auditors have been waiting for 20 minutes. Henderson is furious." Victor checked the time. 8:03 a.m. in New York. He'd set his alarm wrong. "Tell them I'm dealing with a vendor emergency. I'll join by video in 10 minutes. Victor, they're talking about Fairbank. The branch you're." "I know. Just buy me 10 minutes. He ended the call and splashed cold water on his face. His reflection in the hotel mirror looked foreign, the temporary hair dye, the tired eyes, the cheap clothes draped over the chair. He grabbed his laptop, positioned himself in front of a blank wall, and dialed into the conference call. 8 faces appeared on screen. All of them looked annoyed. "Good morning," Victor said, forcing his CEO voice back into place. "Apologies for the delay. Let's begin." Henderson, the lead auditor, didn't waste time on pleasantries. "We need to discuss Fairbank Avenue. The numbers aren't adding up." Victor kept his expression neutral. "Walk me through it." A spreadsheet appeared on the shared screen. Red highlights everywhere. Henderson's voice was clinical, detached. "Inventory discrepancies for the past 6 months. They're ordering bulk chili, hot dogs, and coffee at rates that don't match their sales reports. Either they're wasting massive amounts of food, or revenue isn't being recorded properly." The CFO leaned forward. "We've also received complaints through the anonymous hotline. Someone reported that employees are distributing food without authorization. Possible theft." Victor's jaw tightened. "What kind of complaints specifically?" "Anonymous. Vague. But credible enough to warrant investigation." Henderson pulled up another document. "The branch manager, Clark Donovan, claims everything is fine. But his explanations don't match the data. We're recommending a surprise inspection within the week." "And if we find theft?" Victor asked, already knowing the answer. "Immediate termination of everyone involved. Possible legal action depending on the amount." Henderson's tone was matter-of-fact. "We can't afford to look soft on employee theft. It sets a bad precedent across all locations." Victor's mind raced. If they audited now, Mia would be fired. Ramon too. Anyone who touched those chili dogs. The community support system she'd built would collapse overnight. And legally, Henderson was right. By every corporate metric, what Mia was doing qualified as theft. But it wasn't. Not really. "What's the financial impact?" Victor asked carefully. The CFO pulled up another screen. "Estimated loss is around $3,200 over 6 months. Not catastrophic, but it's the principle. If one branch gets away with it, everyone tries it," Victor finished. He'd given that exact speech 100 times. Zero tolerance. Clear boundaries. Protect the brand. Now those words felt hollow. Henderson continued. "There's also the PR risk. If word gets out that we're allowing employees to run unsanctioned charity operations using company resources, it could open us up to liability issues. Health code violations. Tax complications. Or," the VP of Marketing interrupted, "it could be spun as a positive story. Employee initiative. Community engagement." Henderson shot her a look. "Only if it's sanctioned and controlled. Right now it's either." Victor rubbed his temples. "How certain are we that theft is actually occurring?" 90%, Henderson said. "The patterns are textbook. Off-menu items. Cash transactions. No digital trail. The only question is scale and who's involved." The CFO leaned back. "Victor, I know you like to give branches the benefit of the doubt. But this one's been underperforming for a year. Maybe it's time to cut losses and close it." "Closing it would displace 14 employees," Victor countered. 14 employees who might be stealing from us." The words hung in the air. Victor felt the weight of 8 pairs of eyes on him, waiting for a decision. The old Victor, the one who'd built this company on efficiency and accountability, would have authorized the audit immediately. Would have flown to Fairbank himself to oversee the terminations. But the old Victor hadn't seen Mrs. Chen's face. Hadn't watched Mr. Alvarez clutch a paper bag like it meant survival. Hadn't stood in that alley and realized his company had created a hole so big, an underpaid waitress felt obligated to fill it herself. "Give me 1 week," Victor said finally. Henderson frowned. "Sir? 1 week. I'll personally review the Fairbank situation before we move forward with any audit or closure. That's highly irregular. It's my decision." Victor's voice hardened. 1 week. "If I find theft, We'll handle it appropriately. But I won't shut down a location based on incomplete information. The CFO looked skeptical but nodded. 1 week. Then we move forward. Victor ended the call and sat in the silence of his hotel room. He had 7 days to figure out how to save Mia without destroying everything he'd built. And he had no idea where to start. Victor returned to the diner at 5:45 a.m., but this time he wasn't there to work. He'd called in sick, a first in his entire career, and parked his rental car in a lot 2 blocks away. He needed to see the full picture, not just the fragments visible from behind a kitchen counter. The morning rush unfolded exactly as before. The same faces. The same handwritten orders. The same quiet exchange of cash and gratitude. Mia moved through it all with practiced grace, and Ramon kept the chili warm without question. But today, Victor noticed something he'd missed before. Mia wasn't just serving food. She was listening. Really listening. When Mrs. Chin mentioned her daughter's college application, Mia remembered to ask about it. When the teenager with oil-stained jeans said he had a welding certification test, she wrote the date on her notepad. When Mr. Alvarez returned, wearing a dress shirt this time, and gave her a thumbs up, her whole face lit up. "You got it?" she asked. "Start Monday," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Shipping dock. It's not much, but it's something." Mia reached across the counter and squeezed his hand. "It's everything. I'm so proud of you." Victor felt something crack in his chest. This wasn't a transaction. It was a relationship. A network. A community that his company's spreadsheets could never capture. At 2:30 p.m., when Mia's shift ended, Victor followed her again. He kept his distance, staying a block behind as she made her way through Fairbank's older neighborhoods. The houses here were small, paint peeling, yards overgrown. Boarded-up storefronts lined the main street. A check-cashing place. A liquor store. A laundromat with half its machines broken. This was the Fairbank that corporate reports never mentioned. Mia walked straight to the job center, just as she had the day before. But today, Victor didn't stay across the street. He waited 5 minutes, then walked through the gate himself. Inside, the coordinator was helping someone fill out a resume. Mia was already at her folding table, setting out containers of soup and a stack of sandwiches wrapped in plastic. A handwritten sign read "Free meal, no questions asked." Victor approached slowly, pretending to browse the job postings on a bulletin board. He picked up a flyer. Manufacturing jobs, relocated to Mexico. Warehouse positions, filled. Retail, part-time only, no benefits. The options were grim. "Can I help you?" Victor turned. The coordinator stood beside him, a kind smile on her tired face. Her name tag read Patricia Ruiz, Director. "Just looking," Victor said. "I'm new to the area." Patricia nodded knowingly. "You and half the people here. The plant closure hit us hard. We're doing what we can, but there's only so many jobs to go around." She gestured toward Mia's table. "If you're hungry," Mia brought food. She does that most days. She works at the diner, right? Yeah. Morningside Eats. She's there every morning, then comes here after. I keep telling her she's going to burn out, but she won't stop. Patricia's voice softened with admiration. She grew up here. Knows what it's like to go without. Victor's throat tightened. "What do you mean?" Patricia hesitated, then seemed to decide he was trustworthy. Her dad worked at the plant for 22 years. When it closed, he couldn't find anything else. Fell into depression. Died 6 months later, heart attack, but we all knew it was more than that. Mia watched her family fall apart because one company decided profits mattered more than people. The words hit Victor like a physical blow. Patricia continued, unaware of the impact. She could have left Fairbank. Could have gone to college somewhere else, started fresh. But she stayed. Said somebody had to look out for everyone the system forgot. Victor watched Mia hand a sandwich to an elderly man whose hands shook as he took it. She spoke to him gently, patiently, like he mattered. Like he wasn't invisible. "She's remarkable," Victor managed. She's a saint, Patricia corrected. But saints shouldn't have to work 2 jobs just to feed people breakfast. Victor wandered over to Mia's table, pretending to be interested in the food. Up close, he could see how tired she looked. Dark circles under her eyes. A bandage on her thumb, probably a kitchen burn. The canvas bags at her feet were worn thin, stitching coming loose at the seams. She glanced up and froze when she recognized him. Vic, her voice was guarded. What are you doing here? I wanted to understand, he said honestly. Understand what? Why you're risking everything. Mia set down the ladle and crossed her arms. You wouldn't get it. Try me. She studied him for a long moment, then sighed. When people can't eat, they stop trying. They stop looking for work. They stop believing things can get better. And then they disappear. Her voice was fierce, passionate. I can't fix the factory closing. I can't create jobs. But I can make sure people have enough energy to keep fighting. That's not a risk. That's a responsibility. Victor felt the full weight of her words. She wasn't running a scam. She was filling a gap that his company, that he, had ignored. How much are you spending on this? He asked quietly. About $400 a month. Sometimes more. That's half your paycheck. I know. Mia. I don't need a lecture. She interrupted. If you're going to report me, just do it. Victor shook his head slowly. I'm not here to report you. Then why are you here? He looked at the people around them, tired, hopeful, hungry, and made a decision that would change everything. Because I think you're right, he said. And I think I've been wrong. Victor arrived at the diner for his shift at 5:30 a.m., but the atmosphere had changed. Ramon wouldn't meet his eyes. The other cook, a quiet woman named Lisa, kept glancing toward the manager's office with nervous energy. Even Mia seemed tense, her usual warmth replaced by something brittle. What's going on? Victor asked Ramon quietly. Clark's on the warpath, Ramon muttered. Started going through the security footage last night. Stayed until midnight. Victor's blood ran cold. Why? Someone called the corporate hotline again. He thinks it's about Mia. Before Victor could respond, the office door opened. Clark Donovan stepped out, his face flushed, a stack of printed papers in his hand. He was a thin man in his early 40s, with the perpetually stressed look of someone caught between impossible demands. Mia. Office. Now. Mia set down the coffee pot and walked toward the office, her spine straight, her chin up. Victor watched helplessly as the door closed behind them. Through the small window, he could see Clark gesturing angrily, pointing at the papers. Security footage screenshots. Mia stood perfectly still, her arms crossed, listening without responding. The breakfast rush began, but it felt wrong. Customers came in asking for Mia specifically. Mrs. Chen looked confused when Victor brought her order instead. The teenager with oil-stained jeans, Victor had learned his name was Danny, asked where she was 3 times. 20 minutes later, Mia emerged from the office. Her face was composed, but Victor could see the tremor in her hands as she tied her apron back on. You okay? He asked quietly. Fine, she said, but her voice was hollow. Clark appeared behind her. Vic, right? The new guy? Victor nodded. Good. You're about to learn an important lesson about company policy. Clark's voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. We run a legitimate business here. Everything goes through the register. Everything gets recorded. No exceptions. Anyone caught bypassing the system will be terminated immediately. Understood? Understood, Victor said carefully. Clark's eyes swept the kitchen. That goes for everyone. I don't care what sob story you're hearing. I don't care if someone claims they can't afford a full meal. We're not a charity. We're a business. Ramon slammed a spatula down on the grill. People need to eat, Clark. Then they can pay full price like everyone else. Clark's voice rose. I've got corporate breathing down my neck about inventory discrepancies. I've got auditors scheduled for next week. And I've got employees who apparently think they can run their own operations using company resources. He turned to Mia. No more handwritten orders. No more off-menu items. No more cash transactions that don't go through the POS. If I see it happen again, you're done. And if corporate finds out I knew about this and didn't stop it, I'm done too. Mia's jaw tightened, but she nodded once. Clark stormed back into his office, slamming the door. The kitchen fell silent. Then Ramon spoke, his voice low and dangerous. He's going to let them starve. He's scared, Lisa said quietly. He's got 2 kids in college. He can't afford to lose this job. Victor felt sick. He understood Clark's position. He'd been in it himself 1,000 times. Caught between corporate pressure and ground-level reality. Forced to choose between compassion and compliance. But understanding didn't make it right. The morning shift crawled forward. Customers came in looking for the usual breakfast specials, but Mia could only offer them the official menu. An older man ordered pancakes, looked at the $899 price, and walked out. Mrs. Chen bought a coffee and nothing else. Danny didn't come in at all. At 9:47 a.m., everything went wrong. A man in his 50s, Victor recognized him from the job center, came in and ordered coffee. He sat at the counter, hands wrapped around the mug for warmth, staring at nothing. His skin was pale, clammy. He swayed slightly on the stool. Mia was beside him instantly. Mr. Brennan? When did you eat last? Yesterday morning, he mumbled. Maybe the day before. I don't remember. You need food. Can't afford it. Used my last cash on bus fare to a job interview. Didn't get it. His voice was flat, defeated. Mia looked toward the kitchen, then at Clark's office. Victor could see her calculating the risk. Mia! Clark's voice came from the office doorway. Don't even think about it. She ignored him. Ramon, I need. Mia, I'm warning you. Clark stepped into the dining room. Do not prepare food that isn't paid for. Mr. Brennan suddenly slumped forward, his coffee cup clattering to the counter. His eyes rolled back. He's hypoglycemic. Mia caught him before he fell off the stool. Call 911. Lisa grabbed the phone. Ramon rushed out with a glass of orange juice. Mia held Mr. Brennan upright, talking to him calmly, urgently. Stay with me. Help is coming. Victor moved without thinking. He grabbed a bagel from the pastry case, tore it in half, and brought it to Mia. She fed small pieces to Mr. Brennan, coaxing him back to consciousness. Clark stood frozen, his face white. By the time the paramedics arrived, Mr. Brennan was alert enough to protest. I'm fine. I don't need a hospital. I can't afford. It's okay, Mia said gently. Just let them check you out. As they loaded him onto a stretcher, he grabbed Mia's hand. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause trouble. You didn't, she said firmly. This isn't your fault. But Victor knew whose fault it was. It was his. He built a system that valued profit over people. That measured success in spreadsheets instead of lives. That punished compassion and rewarded compliance. And now he had 4 days to fix it before the auditors arrived and destroyed the only person trying to make it right. Victor hadn't slept. He'd spent the entire night in his hotel room running scenarios, drafting proposals, calculating costs. Every plan had the same problem. It required revealing his identity too soon, before he understood the full scope of what needed to change. He arrived at the diner at 5:30 a.m. to find Mia already there, restocking supplies in silence. She hadn't spoken to him since Mr. Brennan collapsed. None of them had spoken much. The kitchen felt like a funeral. At 5:55 a.m., Clark emerged from his office holding a printout. His hands were shaking. They moved up the audit, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. They're coming today. This morning. Ramon dropped the spatula he was holding. What? Corporate called me at midnight. Said they had credible reports of systematic theft, and they're sending a team immediately. Clark looked at Mia, and for a moment, Victor saw genuine anguish in his face. I'm sorry. I reported the discrepancies like I was supposed to. I didn't know they'd move this fast. Mia's expression didn't change. It's fine. It's not fine. Clark's voice cracked. They're going to fire you. Maybe all of us. I have 2 kids in college, Ramon's got. I know what everyone has. Mia interrupted quietly. That's why I did this in the first place. At 7:13 a.m., 2 corporate auditors walked through the front door. Victor recognized them immediately, Janet Morris and Keith Brenner from the compliance division. He'd hired Janet himself 3 years ago. If she recognized him in his disguise, she didn't show it. We're here to conduct an inventory and financial audit, Janet announced, showing Clark a corporate authorization. We'll need access to all POS records, inventory logs, security footage, and employee schedules for the past 6 months. Clark nodded miserably and led them to the office. The breakfast rush began, but everything was wrong. The regular customers arrived looking for their usual orders, but Mia could only shake her head. I'm sorry. Official menu only. Mrs. Chen stared at the menu board with its $799 breakfast combos. She counted the bills in her wallet twice, then ordered a black coffee and left. Danny came in, saw the auditors through the office window, and walked right back out. An older woman Victor hadn't seen before approached the counter. Is Mia working today? I was told she could. I'm here, Mia said quickly, her voice strained. But I can't help you today. I'm sorry. The woman's face fell. Oh. Okay, she turned to leave, then paused. My grandson has a job interview at noon. He hasn't eaten since yesterday. I thought maybe. Mia's hands clenched on the counter. Victor could see her fighting against every instinct she had. I'm sorry, Mia repeated, and the words seemed to cost her everything. The woman nodded and left. At 8:45 a.m., Mr. Alvarez walked in wearing his new shipping dock uniform. He was smiling, probably coming to share his first-day news, but the smile died when he saw the auditors. He walked to the counter anyway. Mia, I just wanted to say thank you. Because of you, Mr. Alvarez. Mia cut him off, her voice urgent. Not today! Please. He caught the warning in her tone and nodded slowly. But instead of leaving, he ordered a full breakfast combo, scrambled eggs, bacon, toast, coffee. $8.49. He paid with a $10 bill and told Mia to keep the change. As he ate, other regulars began doing the same. Mrs. Chen came back and ordered oatmeal she didn't need. Danny returned and bought pancakes. One by one, the people Mia had been feeding showed up and ordered from the official menu, paying full price, leaving generous tips. They were trying to protect her the only way they could. Victor watched it unfold with a lump in his throat. This was community. This was what his spreadsheets couldn't measure. At 9:30 a.m., everything fell apart. A man Victor didn't recognize stumbled through the door. He was maybe 30, gaunt, shaking. His eyes were unfocused. He made it 3 steps inside before his knees buckled. Help! He managed before collapsing onto the floor. Mia vaulted over the counter. Ramon grabbed the phone. Lisa ran for the first aid kit. Sir, can you hear me? Mia knelt beside him, checking his pulse. When did you last eat? Days, he whispered. I'm sorry. I heard there was someone who helped. Clark appeared in the doorway, his face ashen. Behind him, Janet and Keith stood frozen, witnessing everything. Mia didn't hesitate. Ramon, I need a chili dog. Now. Mia, don't, Clark said weakly. The auditors. I don't care. Her voice was steel. This man needs food. Right now. Ramon was already moving. Within minutes, he had a plate ready. Mia helped the man sit up, giving him small bites, talking him through it. Slowly. That's it. You're okay. You're going to be okay. Janet stepped forward, her clipboard forgotten. Does this happen often? More than it should, Mia said without looking up. And you feed them? Without charging? Someone has to. Keith pulled out his phone, making notes. This is a clear violation of. I know what it violates. Mia interrupted. Fire me if you want. But I'm not letting someone collapse in front of me when I can help. The man, his name was David, they'd learn later, started crying. I'm sorry. I didn't want to be a burden. I just didn't know where else to go. Victor had heard enough. He stepped forward, his heart pounding. Janet. Keith. I need to speak with you. Now. They both turned, confused by the authority in his voice. And that's when Victor pulled off his name tag and met Janet's eyes directly. It's time to stop this audit. The recognition hit Janet's face like a lightning strike. Her clipboard clattered to the floor. Mr. Hayes? Every head in the diner turned. Clark's mouth fell open. Ramon froze mid-flip of a pancake. Lisa gasped audibly. But it was Mia's expression that cut Victor the deepest, a look of pure betrayal. You, she breathed, still kneeling beside David. You've been here the whole time? Yes, Victor's voice was steady, but his hands trembled. And I needed to see this with my own eyes before I made any decisions about this location. Keith recovered first, his corporate instincts kicking in. Sir, we've documented multiple violations. Unauthorized food distribution, cash transactions bypassing the POS system, inventory discrepancies matching exactly. I know what you've documented, Victor interrupted. Because I've witnessed all of it myself. Every chili dog. Every handwritten order. Every person Mia helped. He turned to address the entire diner. And what I've witnessed isn't theft. It's a failure. My failure. Clark stepped forward, his face pale. Mr. Hayes, I can explain. I tried to stop it. I documented everything. You did your job, Clark. Exactly as the company trained you to do. Victor's voice softened. But the company's job was incomplete. He walked to the center of the dining room, aware that everyone, staff, customers, auditors, was watching. This was the moment. Everything he built, everything he believed about business, was about to be tested. 6 months ago, a Royal Manufacturing closed. 1,100 people lost their jobs in this town. Families lost their income, their health insurance, their futures. He gestured to the people gathered, Mr. Alvarez in his work uniform, Mrs. Chen clutching her coffee, Danny standing by the door. These aren't anonymous statistics. They're our neighbors. And when they needed help, what did Morningside Eats do? Silence. Nothing. Victor answered his own question. We kept serving the same menu at the same prices to a community that could no longer afford it. We valued consistency over compassion. We prioritized our spreadsheets over human beings. Mia stood slowly, her arms crossed. So what? You're here to shut us down anyway? Make a big speech before you fire everyone? No. Victor met her eyes. I'm here to say you were right. And I was wrong. He turned to Janet and Keith. Freeze the audit. All of it. Keith's jaw dropped. Sir, we can't just. Yes, we can. The audit is under my authority, and I'm terminating it effective immediately. Victor's CEO voice left no room for argument. Any violations you've documented will be sealed. No disciplinary action will be taken against any employee at this location. Janet found her voice. Mr. Hayes, with respect, there are clear policy violations. If we ignore them, it sets a precedent. Good. Victor's response was sharp. Because the precedent we've been setting is inhumane. We've created a system where employees feel obligated to spend their own money and risk their jobs to fill gaps we should have addressed ourselves. He pulled out his phone and dialed. The call connected immediately. Claire, I need an emergency board meeting scheduled for Monday morning. No, it can't wait. He paused. Tell them I'm proposing a new initiative. Community-based pricing for economically depressed areas. And tell Henderson to pull all pending audits for locations in former manufacturing towns until we've reviewed our entire approach. He ended the call and turned back to Mia. How much did you spend on this? Honestly, I don't see how that's. Mia. Please. She lifted her chin defiantly. About $9,000 over 2 years. Maybe more. I stopped counting. Gasps rippled through the room. Victor felt his chest constrict. $9,000. Half her wages over 2 years, spent feeding people his company had ignored. You're getting reimbursed, Victor said. All of it. And you're being promoted. I don't want. Not a promotion to management, Victor clarified. A new position. Community Outreach Coordinator. You'll design and implement a program to provide affordable meals to people in economic crisis. Corporate will fund it. You'll run it. Mia stared at him. You're serious. Completely. You've already built the system. You know what works. Now you'll have the resources to do it properly, legally, and sustainably. He looked at Ramon and Lisa. And you'll need a team. Anyone here who wants to be part of it is welcome. Clark raised a shaking hand. What about me? You stay as manager. But your metrics are changing. Starting immediately, this location will be evaluated on community impact alongside profitability. If we're going to operate in struggling towns, we need to be part of the solution, not another business extracting value. David, still sitting on the floor where he'd collapsed, spoke up weakly. I don't understand. Why would a company do this? Victor knelt down to meet his eyes. Because it's the right thing to do. And because someone. He glanced at Mia. Reminded me that business isn't just about profit margins. It's about people. Janet and Keith exchanged uncertain glances. Keith spoke carefully. Sir, the board is going to push back. This kind of initiative, the liability alone. Let them push back. I'll handle the board. Victor stood. We're a $700 million company. We can afford to make sure people don't collapse from hunger in our dining rooms. Mr. Alvarez stood up from his booth, and then slowly, others followed. Mrs. Chen. Danny. A dozen customers who'd been watching the entire scene unfold. And then, to Victor's complete shock, they started applauding. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was real. Mia's eyes were shining with tears she refused to let fall. You could have just fired me quietly. Why do all this? Because you risked everything to do what I should have institutionalized years ago. Victor's voice was rough with emotion. And because I refuse to run a company that punishes people for having a conscience. He extended his hand. So, will you help me fix this? Mia looked at his hand for a long moment, then at the people gathered around them. Her community, her responsibility, her purpose. Finally, she shook his hand. Yeah, she said. I will. 2 weeks later, Victor stood in the parking lot of the Fairbank Avenue Morningside Eats, watching a television crew set up lighting equipment. His hands were sweating despite the cool morning air. In 20 minutes, he'd be announcing the biggest policy shift in the company's history. And he still wasn't sure the board wouldn't fire him for it. The past 14 days had been a whirlwind. Emergency board meetings. Heated arguments with shareholders. Late-night calls with legal teams working through liability issues. The CFO had threatened to resign twice. 3 board members demanded a vote of no confidence. But Victor had the numbers on his side. After his announcement at Fairbank, news had leaked. Social media exploded. Within 48 hours, #ChiliDogAngel was trending nationwide. Local news picked it up, then national outlets. Mia's story, the waitress who'd spent her own money feeding struggling workers, captured something people desperately wanted to believe in. Morningside Eats stock had jumped 12% in a week. That changed the board's tune quickly. Inside the diner, Mia was pacing nervously, tugging at the collar of her new company polo. Victor had offered her professional attire for the press conference, but she'd refused. I'm not pretending to be something I'm not, she'd said. You ready? Victor asked, stepping inside. No, she looked genuinely terrified. I'm a waitress. I serve food. I don't do whatever this is. You're not a waitress anymore. Ramon called from the kitchen, where he was prepping for the post-announcement breakfast service. You're a community outreach coordinator. That's fancy. It's terrifying, Mia corrected. Patricia from the job center appeared with David, the man who'd collapsed 2 weeks ago. He looked healthier now, clean-shaven, clear-eyed, wearing a uniform from a local warehouse that had just hired him. "We brought reinforcements," Patricia said, smiling. "Half the job center wanted to come support you." Through the window, Victor could see them gathering: Mrs. Chin, Danny, Mr. Alvarez, dozens of others. They held handmade signs. "Thank you, Mia, community first, this is how business should be." Clark appeared from the office, holding a printed schedule. "Mr. Hayes, the film crew is ready. And, there's about 50 people outside who aren't press." "Should I let them stay?" Victor said. "They're why we're here." At exactly 9 a.m., Victor stepped up to the podium outside. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned in with microphones. Behind him, a new banner hung across the diner's facade. "Morningside Eats Community Breakfast Initiative, Fairbank Pilot Location." "Good morning," Victor began, his voice steady. 2 weeks ago, I came to this location undercover because our numbers said it was failing. What I discovered was that our numbers were measuring the wrong things." He gestured to Mia, who joined him reluctantly at the podium. "This is Mia Santos. For 2 years, she spent half her paycheck feeding people our menu didn't serve and our policies didn't recognize. She did this knowing she could be fired. She did it because it was right." Mia's face flushed, but she stood tall. Victor continued. "Today, Morningside Eats is launching the Community Breakfast Initiative. Starting here in Fairbank and expanding to 48 locations in economically distressed areas by year-end." He clicked to the presentation behind him. "The program includes subsidized breakfast items starting at $299, specifically designed for people between jobs or working multiple part-time positions. Corporate-funded, not dependent on employee charity. Partnership with local job centers to provide meal vouchers for job seekers. And nutritionally designed menus developed with food banks to maximize impact per dollar." A reporter raised her hand. "Mr. Hayes, critics say this is just a PR stunt after you were caught allowing policy violations. How do you respond?" Victor didn't flinch. "They're right that we were violating our own policies. But the policies were the problem, not the solution. We built a system that valued compliance over compassion. This initiative is our commitment to changing that." Another reporter. "What's the cost to the company?" "Approximately $8 million in the first year. We're funding it through operational efficiency improvements and a voluntary executive compensation reduction." He paused. "Including my own salary, which I'm cutting by 15%. That got murmurs from the crowd. "Mia," a reporter called out, "what do you say to people who call you a hero?" Mia leaned toward the microphone, her voice quiet but firm. "I'm not a hero. I'm someone who saw people hurting and did what I could. The real heroes are the people who get up every day and keep trying even when the system makes it harder than it should be." She looked at the crowd gathered behind the reporters, her community. "This program isn't about me. It's about making sure nobody has to choose between eating breakfast and paying rent." The crowd behind the press erupted in applause. After the announcement, they opened the doors. The first customer was Mrs. Chin. She ordered from the new menu a breakfast sandwich, hash browns, and coffee for $349. "Is this real?" she asked Mia, tears in her eyes. "This price?" "It's real," Mia said. "And it's permanent." Mrs. Chin paid with exact change and sat down to eat slowly, savoring every bite. Victor watched from the kitchen, a lump in his throat. Ramon clapped him on the shoulder. "You did good, boss." "Mia did good," Victor corrected. "I just finally listened." By noon, they'd served 200 breakfasts. The line stretched around the block. Local news interviewed customers. A competing diner chain announced they were exploring similar initiatives. As the lunch rush began, Mia found Victor in the office, reviewing the morning's numbers. "We're going to run out of supplies by tomorrow at this rate," she said. "I'll authorize an emergency restock. Double everything." He looked up at her. "Think you can handle scaling this to 48 locations?" Mia smiled, The first real smile he'd seen from her. Yeah. I think I can. Good. Because I'm going to need you in corporate meetings starting next month. The board wants to expand this faster than planned. The board that wanted to fire me 2 weeks ago. The same one. Turns out doing the right thing is also good business. Victor closed his laptop. Who knew? Outside, Mr. Alvarez was leaving with his daughter, who'd driven down from college to see what her dad kept talking about. Danny was showing his welding certification to Patricia, who was already making calls to local contractors. David sat at the counter with a notebook, sketching. When Mia asked what he was drawing, he turned it to show her architectural plans for a community kitchen. Just ideas, he said shyly. For what comes next? Mia looked at Victor. What does come next? He thought about the 48 locations they'd renovate. The thousands of people they'd feed. The board meetings he'd fight. The critics he'd face. The unknown territory ahead. I don't know, he admitted. But I think we figure it out together. She nodded. Together sounds good. As the sun set over Fairbank, the diner glowed warm against the twilight. Inside, people who'd been invisible to corporate spreadsheets were eating, talking, planning their tomorrows. And for the first time in 23 years, Victor Hayes understood what success actually looked like. It looked like community. Like compassion. Like chili dogs served at 7 a.m. by someone who refused to let people disappear. It looked like home. The end.